Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks, Bucks and Bytes podcast, your weekly dive into funding, market and investor news in architecture, engineering, construction and supply chain. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
Good afternoon. I would say normally good morning, guys, but it's actually the afternoon.
Yeah, it sounded weird.
And for me and mine, we're in the middle of what is this, mine? 4.5 hour podcast marathon that we're doing. So please bear with us.
Yeah. Mad respect.
Thank you. Okay, guys. Shall we dive on into a company in San Francisco, which has just raised $4 million in seed funding? They're called... Go, Patrick.
First of all, I just want to say you need an ad blocker for your browser.
They're our sponsors.
All of them.
Yeah. Especially Nordic Spirit. We like to promote nicotine on the show. So
build your website with AI and expert support. Yeah.
Amongst all of the ads, what happens if I click this? Oh, there we go. There's one gone. We have, a company called HomeBoost, which plays in a similar field to a couple of investments, Patrick, that I don't know how many investments, but definitely one significant investment that we have spoke about here a few times called Enter. What do we think about this company, Martin?
Going through the website and trying to understand what they do is that, in my view, they are scanning the walls, floors, ceilings, perhaps roofs as well, and trying to figure out how much of the heat loss are you having in your home due to cold bridging or missing insulation. And they do something with this data. That's my understanding of what they do. Patrick, okay. What's your take on HomeBoost?
So we didn't speak to the company, so I can give a very fresh and opinionated view here, and I'm not running at risk of spilling any secrets, because literally I don't have them.
Yeah, be careful, because the next article we're going into is about selling trade secrets. So
yeah, segueing early. But I have thoughts on the space, and then thoughts on what the company seems, and that's how I'm going to present my thoughts here, seems to be doing. The space itself, I'm absolutely in love with already since late 21 and early 2022. We've backed this, and that is the energetic renovation and specifically the capturing of primary substance of a building. So if you guys remember from the discussions we had about Enter a while back, there's 3 types of primary data that in the end you can collect in order to design energetic renovation measures. The first one is the consumption, kilowatt hours per year for a home. The second one is the load curves of the technical equipment, my boiler, my solar, blah, 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 blah. And the third one is the actual physical substance of the home. Mm-hmm. How thick my walls are, where are the doors, et cetera, et cetera. And so HomeBoost wants to play in the third, and that's a part of the market that I love a lot, and that was fueling very much our excitement for Enter, which is the European market leader, in my opinion, in the space. Definitely the German one, but in my opinion, also the European one in that space. Insane traction, amazing team, raised Series B money from big US investors, and us, of course, we led the original pre-seed. So the whole space, due to rising energy costs, aging building infrastructure, and most of the competitors, if not all of them, focusing on the first 2 data types, so consumption and load curves, makes for an amazing opportunity in itself. And two, if you truly want to design the merit order of energetic renovation measures, you need the physical substance. The consumption itself is not very valuable, and everybody has it. Your utility, your grid operator, you yourself, blah, blah, blah. Meter operator as well, by the way. And the load curves are not particularly valuable either. And you also won't get them because they sit with the OEMs of your technical equipment. The physical substance is what you need in order to truly design a very high quality merit order of energetic renovation measures. And it's not always the same. But if you go to a solar installer, they will always tell you, hey, put a photovoltaic on top. If you go to an insulation provider, they will tell you that. If you go to your window manufacturer, they will tell you that. But if you want a true independent, credible arbitration of the energetic renovation measures, you need the physical substance. That's the space where HomeBoost plays. So that part I like a lot. Before I come to HomeBoost, I don't know if this, that's the second part. So my thoughts about HomeBoost, but I don't know if this makes any sense to you guys.
Yeah, I already understood the space.
Oh, you want me to keep going?
Please.
Okay. So, HomeBoost, what it seems they are doing is, I call it the people's energy assessment. As in, hey, we're trying to design a product for maybe 320 million Americans to eventually do an energy assessment of their home, like in its most extreme case. I love that vision. So the people's energy assessment, we're also rolling out with Enter, because this is something that makes a lot of sense. The way they go about it, it seems gimmicky and actually a little bit misleading to me from a technical perspective. Let me explain. So HomeBoost, you can order basically, think of it like your COVID test kit that you could order online. HomeBoost charges you $99 and they send you in a small box, a FLIR for your phone. So basically you attach it to the socket of your phone, and now you have a thermal, imagery that you can collect with the phone, and you can connect it with the HomeBoost app. And then you walk your home in order to see, basically, HomeBoost tells you see heat losses, but that's actually not true. In most of the cases, you won't see heat losses. You will only see surface temperature of your walls, of your windows, etc. And that's the first flaw with this approach. So if you take thermal imagery to pretend like you're capturing the physical substance, you're going to capture a lot of wrong or misleading data. First, your walls or your building hull actually needs to lose heat. That's the thermal bridge or the heat bridge. Martin, am I right about that?
Sounds about that.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you will actually have to have heat leaks, so to speak, in your thermal imagery. So if HomeBoost, what I don't think they are doing, give the impression to the users, hey, over your window, there is a little bit of a heat bridge. That's actually by design. That's correct to do it in order to prevent mold, for example. Two, thermal imagery, the way it works is it shows a difference in temperature. It doesn't show a heat loss. It shows a difference in temperature. So, for example, if you're living in Arizona and your home is cooled down to 18 degrees and outside, I'm centigrade now. It's cooled down to, let's say, 70 Fahrenheit and outside it's 105, then this works. If, however, your home has in the interior pretty much the exact same temperature as outside, or it actually needs a vast difference. So it's, let's say it's even just a 15 degree Fahrenheit difference, it won't work. It will give you completely wrong results. So you won't see that. So that's a second problem, with this. And so both of these already are problematic in itself. The third one is the true problem with heat loss is where you have airflow. And so because thermal imagery only looks at the surface temperature of your window could be extremely high. Why? Because there's the sun perhaps heating it up. But it doesn't mean that you're actually losing heat because there's no airflow within it. However, on the other side, most of your heat will be lost under doors. That's a pretty problematic part of every building, but your thermal imagery from HomeBoost most likely will not show that. because the airflow will actually not have a difference in temperature. The airflow itself has exactly the same temperature. So this is a very gimmicky approach, in my opinion.
Let's go.
It can be quite misleading, and it does not replace what engineers will actually do in order to give you a proper capturing of the substance of your building. And with that, a lot of ISO norm calculations, as well as a blower door test. That's something I would not recommend for a lot of people. For many people, that will be way, way, way over engineered. But just to give you an idea, there is really accepted norms how to capture the energetic efficiency of your home, and this is not one of them.
And interesting, actually, I didn't know that. So, and I actually didn't know that you buy some device and you apply it to your phone, and then
like what value does this actually add to the consumer? Because as far as I'm aware, these energetic renovation companies would more or less do this for you anyway, right? Whilst they're assessing your home in order to recommend what solution you should purchase, whether that be solar, insulation, windows, air source.
Yeah, you could get the real deal in the US probably for a couple $100 by an engineer that comes out, etc. So their value prop here is, hey, nobody has to come into your home, and it's way cheaper, $100. But is way cheaper?
Yes. Yeah. The question is what people really can do with this report, and how can they action next steps? Because if someone gets a report and there is some bunch of superficial information, and then what do? You send this for quotes, and how accurate you get?
Exactly.
How accurate the quotes you get?
Great point.
So on the quote part, I think you might get quite accurate quotes if that's where HomeBoost wanted to go. But whether these measures are actually good for your home and a good ROI, that I have my doubts on. For example,
you get the accurate quotes based on the report, but if the measuring is not correct technically because it doesn't show you the heat loss, then the quote is not fit for purpose, I think.
It's not fit for purpose. Exactly. I follow you there. So the quote itself might tell you, hey, you need to add insulation in this part of the wall. And that might be the wrong conclusion. But the quote for the insulation itself, that might be an accurate quote. It's just that it's the wrong measure in the wrong place.
Yes.
Yeah. Plus presumably from that point, HomeBoost are then going to send their findings to a third-party subcontractor to undertake the work.
Do they say that? Do they speak about that anywhere?
I'm not sure, but in my head, the logical step would be you get the assessment, and now you want to get the upgrades of works done. So whether you do it through HomeBoost or whether you do it on your own accord, i.e., you say, "Here's my assessment. I'm going to ring up free." Those subcontractors or whoever they are, they have to there's some liability there, right? Like they have to they probably maybe want to undertake their own tests, or I don't know if they would necessarily take someone else's test as like gospel for being correct.
Look, I mean, if you let's use a real example. Let's say I use HomeBoost, and it gives me, because it clearly says it gives you recommendations, and it gives you now a recommendation on an energetic renovation measure to add a photovoltaic, or to insulate a certain part of the wall. Now, whether it's through HomeBoost or through your own research, you're obviously relying on this merit order of energetic renovation measures, because that's why I just paid $100, and it's a highly touted, whatever software now. I go out and ask someone for a quote on a photovoltaic. I will give them data about my home, which maybe is in this report, maybe not. Typically, they will need additional data from you, like, for example, surface area of your roof, blah, 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 blah. That quote will be accurate. It might be quite expensive, but it will be accurate. But whether that measure actually truly improved the energetic bill for you and improved and had a high ROI, or the highest bang for the buck out of what HomeBoost is doing, I have my doubts.
Looking at the investors, True Ventures, Gigascale Capital, Insight, are they general investors or they are construction related?
Yeah, so I only need to know two of them. True definitely is a generalist investor, yeah.
Okay. That would that indicate that, I was trying to figure out what the pitch was, and what the understanding could be also from the VC's point of view about the product. Because based on what you say and what previous conversations we had on Bricks and Bytes is that it's not such a simple thing to evaluate energy efficiency of the home. Yeah?
Martin, everybody here on Bricks, Bucks and Bytes knows that I have an energy background, studied energy economics, started in renewables, worked for the world's largest investor-owned utility, worked in biz dev for renewables, for storage. If you have an energy background, you know exactly what this is. And so if you don't have an energy background as a VC, then you can still do your diligence from or maybe you have an engineering background.
Very good. Shall we move to article number 2?
Maybe before we do this, is there any similar, not similar, well, any solutions apart from already mentioned Enter that you spoke with in Europe?
Oh, a lot of them in the UK. Must have been 5, 6, 7. Ferb Now, for example, is such an example in the UK. In France as well, Equer is a good company that originally started in the space. EFI is relatively advanced.
How do they differ? From HomeBoost, for example? Are they more?
So HomeBoost is so HomeBoost's value proposition from the outside in seems to me that they try to simplify extremely,
everything.
That they try to cut out the person that needs to visit your home, that they try to consumerize the energy assessment. So that seems to be HomeBoost's spiel. But for the reasons that I mentioned, I don't believe in that.
Actually, before we move on as well, I actually thought one other thing is I've seen within the energetic renovation space recently a lot of funding going into the space. Patrick, you guys are obviously investors in Enter, as we just mentioned. What does the additional capital that's flowing into this space signal? Is it how do you see that? Is it a good thing? Is it a threat? Is it an opportunity for you guys?
It signals higher energy prices.
It's a great thing, especially when it gets allocated to the correct solutions, the best teams. It's an absolutely great thing. And so the US is so Europe was pioneering this ahead of the US, which doesn't happen in a lot of spaces, right? So oftentimes the US, due to, bigger and better pipeline of high quality founders, more access to capital, pioneers solutions earlier. Here in the energetic renovation space, it was actually Europe. Enter was founded in 2021, right? And again, other companies, not just about one company. So I see it very positively, especially when it gets allocated to the correct companies.
Plus, there's a lot of homes to sort out.
Exactly. Yeah. And always keep in mind, everybody, I think in our audience knows these stats, but in the end, buildings are responsible for 40% of greenhouse gas emissions, both construction and operation.
And it's obviously painful to pay hefty bills. So Oracle.
I wonder what Donald Trump would think of this solution if he gets elected on Tuesday.
Oh, which one? On
let's dig for more. Let's drill for oil.
I had to bring in the election somehow, as I've been listening to Joe Rogan and Donald Trump podcast.
Yeah, we're going for election day, actually.
Yeah, we're going to be there. So we get back. Okay, here's one that might interest you. Talking of adverts, Patrick, Vivaya designed for all-day walking shoes.
Nice. Your ad blocker is really working.
Okay, next article. It says Oracle sues payment software company Procore over trade secrets. Is Procore a payment software company? This is news to me.
I think they were. They were announcing. No, they were announcing this product. I think last year. I remember during Grand Break. Was it?
Yeah, keep in mind they had originally gone into the financial workflows with the acquisition of Levelset, lien waivers, etc. So that's how it all, I think, really seriously began for Procore.
Yeah. Okay, let's have a look at this then. So
Maybe what is Oracle actually? What do they do, Patrick? Do you know?
So, yeah, Oracle is one of the world's largest enterprise resource planning software companies. It might be the largest competitor to SAP that way. And within the construction space, they have ERP-like solutions, as well as, payment software like Textura, which is referenced here in the lawsuit. And Oracle, for example, made splashes back in, I want to say it was 2017, late 2017, before we founded Fundamental, of acquiring Aconex, which for 1.2 billion back then, which was founded by two Australian founders, and was a big project management / ERP suite for general contractors, which Oracle acquired in order to build out their business in the construction space.
Interesting. Let's look at this then. So Oracle are accusing Procore of stealing confidential information to put up his business. So a former employee of Oracle, his name Mark Mariano, took thousands in inverted commas. I mean, that is a hell of a lot. I'm not sure I could remember thousands of trade secrets even in my own job, but hey. To his new job at Procore, which enabled the company to launch a rival software platform for construction payment management. Spokespeople for Procore and attorneys and spokespeople for Oracle did not immediately respond to requests. Mariano could not be reached for comment.
What is interesting here, I think, is I know the word of it, non-compete, it's called. What do you guys think of non-compete clauses in contracts? Because obviously I don't know this situation, but if someone moves jobs from one to another, they have some intellectual property taken with them and contribute to other business, other solutions. So is that stealing, or is it there should be their non-compete against similar cases?
And your question is specifically about non-competes in employment agreements, right? Not in, let's say, an agreement between two companies.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Yes, employment agreement.
So I could tell you from a European jurisdiction or even court perspective, non-competes in employment agreements for executives, or when you make separation agreements with, also regular employees, are accepted, but only for a relatively short amount of time and in exchange for something else. So for a bigger separation fee, for example, or whatever. Because at least I believe the European courts see non-competes in the context of careers of people as a way to make people unemployable. And obviously that's something that, no one wants, or no one should want, I should say, from an economic perspective.
Yeah. And usually these people, they are kind of quite talented and they could contribute to the next venture and boost productivity within a certain sector or work towards boosting productivity.
Just consider, right? We discussed it in the pre-brief very, very quickly, but we said, hey, let's say someone has 20 years experience in something, and then for whatever reason they leave your company, or you want them to leave your company, etc. How do you tell a person to forget everything they learned in 20 years and find a job elsewhere that does something completely differently, or that does maybe something in the space, but hey, please forget what you learned? Like, to me, this sounds ridiculous just as a concept.
It's also Oracle, I think, I obviously ask you what they do because I didn't know exactly, but this name has been, I've heard it many, many times, and seems like it's an incumbent and it's a large business, right? So what is also interesting is, from them probably they are fishing for similar lawsuits to make sure that they will become prevalent market player within business verticals, I think. So their job is to stand still and make sure that people are not innovating. If I can say this way.
Potentially.
There's some detail here in the article that says that the subject, according to the complaint, took thousands of his files to Procore, including source code, customer information, and research plans that allowed the, again, in inverted commas, struggling company to transform its business.
But here you need to understand or keep in context the US legal system and how it differs from other legal systems. So in the US, in many types of cases, anybody can make any kind of claim. They don't have to bring forward proof necessarily for the claim. It would, again, this would be in many cases, it might not be in all of them. And this would trigger then the ability for the defendant to respond. And a judge might then decide, hey, we move into discovery. And so the discovery is then when facts need to be produced, but also access to facts needs to be given to, find out whether these claims are actually correct. I find that concept, just so ridiculous. The US is such an amazing country and an amazing economy. I find it still hilarious that they became such an amazing economy on this ridiculous of a concept. So I can make any kind of claim and I can make anybody have to defend my claim. And I didn't have to produce any kind of facts for my claim. So I'm exaggerating. It's not exactly like that, but conceptually it goes into that direction. I find it ridiculous.
Yeah, but is it also not a way to try to kill the potential competitor at the early stages of their solution? If you are incumbent and you have a solution within the industry, and people are moving, for example, I don't know if it was in the case of Procore, but Procore is moving into payments and you see that they are taking your market share, but it's still bigger. You can throw the claim and see how they respond. And obviously, who has more money to fight probably might be a winner. We don't know.
So, very convenient legal system to do what you described. I mean, over here, what would happen, and actually over in many other non-European countries, the judge would ask Oracle, hey, do you have any facts, at least circumstantial evidence, to support your claims? And if that judge would not be okay with that, they would not move into discovery or anything. They would just throw the case out.
Patrick, have you ever, in the startup world, been privy to a similar circumstance? And obviously only share, I don't know if you're legally bound or you're not comfortable sharing some information in this front, but does it come up? Is it a regular occurrence? Is it like completely rare that people threaten it?
I don't think we have ever had a case in the portfolio where lawsuits happened. I did have one case in my portfolio where two companies, one was the supplier, the other was the customer, were basically haggling over, hey, did your product meet my specifications? That's something that's relatively common when you exchange physical goods at a relatively large scale. That's about the only time I can even remember this. I'm sure there were things that never rose like to the level because it got managed like within a day or so. So for that, I cannot speak, but no, nothing even remotely like this. Every now and then, I think these last 2 years, you have seen investors sue their portfolio companies more than you had seen before.
What for?
For example, misappropriating funds, misrepresenting information during fundraisers. So these are all like late remnants from the high activity and peak season of 2021. So we've seen more of that. But in general, it's considered bad business in venture. Because, time is more valuable. It's, everybody's reputation, etc. Early stage venture investors and early stage in general, you wouldn't see that much. It's usually like in very late stages.
And this loss is only a few $1 million, so it's negligible. Well, for a venture investor.
Yeah, the lawyers earn.
The lawyers earn, yes. You guys don't sign NDAs as the venture capital industry with founders, no?
VCs hate NDAs. Yeah.
Okay. Any more on this? I think people would maybe be interested to hear that the platform that Mariano worked on was Textura Payment Management. I don't know how familiar people are with Oracle, but then what the article says is that a very similar solution suddenly popped up within the Procore platform. So I would be curious to know what feature or tool that is within Procore.
That's what I think is that, like, if someone has been working in the industry for 5-10 years, is a specialist in the space, they move somewhere else and improve industry, really. And that's but my feeling is that what happened. But obviously, if you took these files and pen drives,
yeah,
that's probably different story.
Slightly different. Okay. Patrick, you said you had a interesting chat with a founder earlier today.
That's right. So you guys had Oscar from Cutter on. Cutter is a B2B marketplace in the wood material part of the construction industry here in Europe. Was originally a YC company, then raised from us, as well as Andreessen Horowitz with Jeff Jordan. And so you guys had him on, and I thought that was a terrific episode. I think it was groundbreaking.
Really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah. He was amazing. I love that.
Amazing founder. And so I caught up with Oscar earlier today and discussed a lot of things. But one of the things that Oscar raised, and I found it resonating with me again very strongly, was the concept of, hey, human touch points in B2B marketplaces in order to inject curation or in order to inject certain services, reliability, etc. And I just wanted to make that statement on here is that because it doesn't get talked about often enough in the context of B2B marketplace, especially in construction, is the conventional wisdom when you talk about marketplaces was oftentimes born out of consumer marketplaces where aggregating demand is the big problem and supply is oftentimes easier to qualify. And you try to get in highly fragmented demand and supply, a lot of liquidity in order to get a high match rate. And in order to do that, you need to automate everything. You need to standardize everything and then automate everything, including the touch points between supply and demand. And because practically all of the experiences that investors, but also founders that, for example, came out of Uber or out of Lyft, etc., made was in that context. But when you look into B2B marketplaces, especially in construction, that logic doesn't apply. Oftentimes, you're not building for liquidity in terms of, hey, let's have 300 suppliers. I don't need that to get a marketplace going. I only need 5 suppliers, sometimes 7, in a specific, for example, materials category. And I need to work with them on the capacity that they give me and that the utilization that I guarantee them. And that means I don't have to manage typically to get to 100 million annualized GMV. I don't need to manage thousands of interfaces between suppliers and customers. Oftentimes I can get to that scale with much less interfaces. On the other hand, though, this industry runs on curation. It runs on trust, right? And that's why track record is so important, but that's also why picking up the phone, getting a human on the line and discussing with them is so important. And it runs on context. So every transaction might be a little bit different because the customer might have a question about, hey, how does this work in my project? Or, hey, can I make sure that you can add this to this? Can you also do this kind of service for me? And that's where a human is oftentimes the way more efficient, but also reliable and trustworthy interface than a software. And so that's where B2B marketplaces like Cutter and Oscar's philosophy is so different is, hey, I need to actually maximize the amount of human touch points. I just need to, in the background, automate them for my employee. But the customer shouldn't see that. They should still have the touch point. We should still have the ability to inject trust and inject services. We just automate all of it on the back end. And that's a very important philosophy I just wanted to highlight to every marketplace builder in B2B out there. Do not minimize human touch points. Do not automate everything. Try to keep all your human touch points and automate them on the back end.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, actually, because B2B is B2C, usually customer is a pain and you want less this touch points. With B2B, you want to create better relationships, so people will be coming back to you. And I'm just talking about traditional business and construction, not even about like tech or marketplaces. But that's, I think, all across the construction space is the same dynamic.
Yeah, especially as Patrick made a good point. We're in a low trust industry. Technology is relatively new on the scene as well. And the transactional value is probably quite high. And in Oscar's case, a lot of like what they're doing, wood manufacturing, kitchens, furniture, it's quite bespoke by nature as well. So out the box doesn't necessarily is not necessarily the solution. My question though, does it not sort of undermine the idea of a marketplace where it's like it is quite hands off and it's just like the transactions done somewhere away from humans?
No, because then you will have the customer going somewhere else when they can speak to and they can be taken care of better.
But what I mean is
B2B. Because they already know that this is B2B. They know what they want. They are specialists in this. They exactly know. And if the platform doesn't provide them with this, they will just go to somewhere else.
Yeah, but my question was really around it's the idea of a marketplace not to be hands-off as a business model.
Not in B2B. To a degree, I'm sure.
The idea of a marketplace, I would describe more fundamentally differently. So the idea of a marketplace is to generate a lot of orders with relatively little acquisition, with relatively little CAC and relatively little cost to serve. And ideally that comes because of repeat behavior. So the same customer keeps coming back. So the acquisition costs are not there. And you're standardizing and automating the execution of the transaction, but not necessarily the matchmaking, the execution and the procurement, but the execution of the transaction. So that's how you get to very low cost to serve over time. And you try to do that in an ideal marketplace asset light. So with very little cash flow burden, working capital, and with almost no fixed cost on the supply side. And so that's something that the B2B marketplaces that inject a lot of human touch points still satisfy quite actually. They maximize they maximize the LTV over CAC because customers are more happy to come back. They get more upsold by the human touch points, right? And the cost to serve can still be relatively low because I can automate a lot for my human touch point.
Does it answer your question, Owen?
Yes. Very good. Okay, guys. Shall we wrap up?
Let's do it.
Okay. Well, enjoy your weekend.